All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Hi, I'm DJ Sixsmith. You're watching Sit Down. Mishel Prada here with us. Vida season 3, the final season on Starz. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Just
I'm doing
home.
well. It's a crazy world we're living in right now, but it's good to be doing these virtual interviews.
Yeah. Good to see you. Good to have social contact.
Yes, I think that's really important. And there's plenty of time to watch stuff, which I've been telling everybody. And your show
Mm.
is certainly at the top of the list. So, what has this whole experience been like for you? It's been a pretty wild ride, but what sticks out the most?
Um, you know, it's interesting, right? Because we had this whole, this being the third season and us knowing that it was going to be a final season, we had these plans of like a big hurrah and like getting together. And now nothing is going as planned, which I feel like is exactly kind of a lot of the themes of Vida, where like someone like Emma has like these very specific plans for the bar, as she has had for the first like definitely like the second season. And what happens when you allow yourself to kind of just like go with what is, accept what is. And it's interesting because we're exactly in those times right now, and just kind of really being much more present and aware and not feeling the need to judge every single moment or every single person. So I think for Emma, that's been a big part of her journey. And I think both of the sisters really kind of coming into their own agency and power.
You mentioned playing Emma. What is the most fascinating part of who she is as a character?
I think there's something really beautiful about watching the courage it takes to kind of face your demons a bit. Um, I think it's easy to set up a life for yourself, and someone like Emma, especially in season one, has set up a life for herself that's like an island. And when you're on an island, nobody can hurt you, but you also end up in a situation where you don't really have strong interpersonal connections, and you don't really grow and evolve really. She throws herself into work and into these very black and white A to B to C plans of I'm going to do this and get there. And in a lot of ways, it's really admirable, because I think a lot of people that grew up the way that she did and were given kind of that deck of cards at birth don't really have an opportunity to do that. So it's really beautiful to see her be a strong Latina businesswoman. But then once she gets there, really kind of being put in a position to face her path or her past, and making the choice to actually do it.
Mm.
So I think both women kind of are seeing what it's like on the other side of that courage that it takes to do that.
Facing the past is never an easy thing, and given these
Yeah.
circumstances, I mean, it's really intense. And I think one of the best parts of the show is like your show just goes for it. Like there's nothing off limits. Like it's all the
Yeah.
meaty topics. What's something from season one where you're like, okay, this is what this show is going to be about? Like, what's one of those big things that really off the bat kind of set the tone for you guys?
I really think about I mean, there's a lot of, I think one of the great things, especially in that first season, I mean, there's these moments, right? And how many times you experience those little shifts, not when you're talking about them, not when you're saying, oh, well, you know what, I think I need to do this, when you're just kind of sitting there and you're like gazing off, or there's like something that you kind of look at as it passes by, and you're just like, oh wow, this just moved something in me. So there's these moments, I think, that are really beautiful. I mean, I love the imagery of Lynn driving back on the bus with the housekeeper, and they're both heading back to the same neighborhood, but they're
Mm.
both sitting in that. Or Emma kind of just even sitting out on the roof, which is like where her mom kind of built their childhood, was on this rooftop. And really one of my favorite moments is just the moment where it's in season one, or episode one, season one, where the door gets opened
Mm.
and you see these two sisters looking at each other, and there's this separation between them. And I feel like so much of the show and their past is what's in that space between them. And then you end that episode with them, you see who they've become and who they are and how they operate in the world so differently. And then with that final scene in episode one, where they're looking at childhood videos of themselves, and once again there's that space what is in between that space? What did it take for it to go from these little girls dancing on a rooftop, laughing together, to these young women that are completely at odds with each other and couldn't be any more different? What is in that space? So I think kind of when I think of those in season one, that space to me, I think is really, really powerful.
It's the exploration of small spaces like that, and then a bigger space in Los Angeles, because when you think about that as a backdrop and that as a character, like we've seen it in your show, we've seen it in Gentrification recently on Netflix. Like, what piques your interest about LA as you kind of peel back that onion?
Well, I think a lot of times, especially as a Latinx community, you get your narrative painted onto you by people that don't really understand it even slightly, truly. And it's kind of an outsider's view of what they think you are. And what I think is so great about what you're saying is that we're getting an opportunity to tell our story, and what that does is that gives us this freedom to kind of even poke fun at each other and give these very universal themes of, you know, looking for love, finding love, you know, success, failures, joys, all of these things that are very human themes, but then also these very specific ways of looking at these neighborhoods that are so LA, but we rarely see them portrayed in ways that aren't like a ghetto safari. Like, look at them in their habitats, like being, you know, whatever. So it's like we're getting to see that, yes, there are things that happen in certain neighborhoods. There are gangs, there are drugs, there are all stuff, but also there's people just trying to survive and trying to, you know, keep a bar from falling to disrepair, or having arguments with their sister and not really knowing how to bridge that gap. Like, those things are happening just the same way that they are in almost any neighborhood in the United States.
Yeah, it humanizes everything, and it's so important when people who have actually lived the experience are telling the experience. That makes such a difference. It's not an outsider trying to tell your story. Like, that is what's authentic about your show and some of the other programs that we've seen, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, and it's like, it doesn't take away from anything that's already existed. I've been inspired by a lot of other shows that have come out, you know, but there's also, we're getting an opportunity now to expand the narrative and to kind of delve into a bit more of the nuances and that are really just versions of our human experience.
What's the biggest thing you want people? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
This is different faces and different food, and I think we're all the better for it, right? We get to know each other more, and yet we become less afraid of each other because you feel like, oh, I know somebody from that neighborhood. Whereas, like, you might not go into a neighborhood and get invited to someone's house to eat flan, but like Vida gives you that invitation.
It just normalizes the experience. I think that's really such an important thing. And, you know, thinking about this show now, it's coming to an end. What are the big things that you'll take away, and what are the big things people should take away when they watch the final season?
I mean, I feel it's kind of both a similar answer. I think it's what's possible, and that, you know, a few years ago, a show being made this way was something so out of the idea of what was possible, and now it is. So now I think that I hope that people feel inspired to tell their own stories and to have conversations that might not be completely comfortable, but allow us to get to know each other better. And I know that throughout the 3 seasons, I feel like I've grown up and I've learned a lot about just even myself as an actor, you know, myself as being able to play this character who's so unapologetic of who she is, but still struggles with certain aspects of it. So it's not like you're just one or the other. It's not this monolithic experience. And I really hope that people will hear us tell our stories and then hear theirs and feel enabled and empowered to continue feeling like they belong and that their stories are important.
Well, you guys have been able to do all those things. Mishel, thanks so much for hanging out. Best of luck, and we'll talk to you down the road, all right?
Yeah, thanks so much. Great talking to you.
All right, awesome. That was great. Thank you.
Awesome. My pleasure. Have a great day.
You too. Thanks a lot. Talk to you later.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Ramona.